We never had any right to be successful as we were, Pete. We never had any right to knock off the big guys. We were the underdogs. We were these kids that just came out of nowhere and stole the hearts and minds and listenership of Melbourne.
Hi, I'm Pete Camilleri. Today on Pete's Video Room, we talk about real radio, being yourself, short, strong talk, breaks, and how to connect with people today. My guest is Glenn Hanson. Glenn knows radio inside and out. All right, let's go. G'day, Glenn. Thanks for coming in.
G'day, Pete. How are you, mate?
I'm very well. What first hooked you on radio?
Wow, where to begin? I was about 5 years old, and I don't know if you remember these little radios you used to be able to get, the character radios, Snoopy, I think it was, and Bugs Bunny. Yeah. They had a little microphone. And I used to try and emulate the radio announcer of the day. And I was just interested, just so enthralled by radio and the mystery of radio and, just the imagination aspect of guessing what was going on and not being able to see it and trying to, picture it in your own mind, what was going on with radio. And also I got interested in being able to speak over the airways. My grandfather was I don't know if you remember amateur radio. We used to speak overseas back before the internet time, over the radio waves and just radio.
That was shortwave radio.
Shortwave radio, yeah. Like with the 20-metre band and 80-metre band. Just the aspect of being able to immediately communicate or connect with someone over radio was something that really enthralled me. And I just got into it. Like any kid of my age, you're given a bedtime, lights out. I used to smuggle the little transistor radio in under my pillow and listen to, talkback radio of the day. I think it was Alex Kenworthy and Hal Todd and that sort of thing. And just listening to the immediacy of radio, like you'd hear people ring up, homeless people or people who were in need and being able to get help for them just there and then on the spot. Like nothing as far as mediums in radio can connect and instantaneously get a message out. I've been interested in radio ever since I was a little kid, as I said, listening to, the jocks of the day on 3XY, Craig Huggins with the top 8 at 8, and John Peters at Triple M, Mobs and Fletch, those sort of guys. And then it came a point where I used to visit my grandmother in Mornington, and there was this radio station I saw doing, test broadcasting down in Mornington, Radio Port Phillip, or 3RPP back then. And I'd always been interested, in looking behind the curtain as to what radio was about, and the opportunity presented itself. They were looking for presenters, and I was all of 16 years old, young and dumb back in the time. But I loved my music and I loved, radio ever since I was little. I thought, why not give it a crack? One day I just went up unannounced to the radio station and said, I want to be on air. Little did I know that the breakfast announcer who I bailed up that morning without announcing my, turning up, had been receiving death threats the day before. So he was a little concerned when he saw this kid just roll up to the back door. But I was on air and it was a wonderful time. I'd been there. That was what really kicked it off for me as a 16-year-old.
Were you getting paid?
No, not at all. Time? No, not at all. No, it was all love, and we did it for the the love of it.
So you'd go in twice a week, or?
I'd go in. I used to do weekend breakfast, 6 to 9. So I was that idiot that used to get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and do radio on the air, 6 till 9. But it gave me a good grounding, and I was playing music and having surf reports and getting people ringing in, and it really learned, the flying by my seat of my pants, as far as radio was concerned. And I was, able to really learn the basics, the technicalities of it, as far as what makes good radio, structuring radio, panelling and all that sort of thing, as well as any other thing you could think of. I think I was boundary riding as well at football, doing local football games. Yeah.
But you did a course with a radio course with
Bob Taylor.
Bob Taylor.
Yes, yeah. Who he had other people come through, most notably Gavin Wood, who I met and befriended, and he took me into the radio station, so I was able to have a look at a real live radio station in action.
So was that completely different to the community radio station that you were working in? Like that whole experience going to a TAFE? Was it a TAFE that you were going to?
No, it was just a private radio school,
right,
with Bob.
And that was in Hawthorne?
In Caulfield.
In Caulfield.
Hawthorne Road, Caulfield.
Okay.
But he taught a lot of a lot of radio announcers on the air. But as I said, most notably Gavin.
Did he teach you how to formulate your the content? Is that part of the education, like formulating the content, panel operating?
It was more presentation, more the elocution.
Right.
Which for me now, I with respect to him, I took it and go, just for the most part, threw it out the window.
Right.
Radio back then was about voices, not personalities. So it's changed a bit more now. Because back then we had people like, Barry Bissell, Mike Perso, all those sort of, Peter Harrison, Joe Bovolino. It was all the big rock jock voice, whereby more so nowadays it's personality driven. There's a lot more, it's not a matter of having a radio voice or, sounding like a radio person. For crying out loud, we've got Dave Hughes on the radio. He's no radio voice. So, it definitely evolved from a sound as such, a radio sound, to personality driven and being more authentic, more yourself.
I'm just going to talk about hits for a moment. In Gabe McGrath's Hits versus Fox chat, Grubby and Dee Dee say Fox fell from number 1 to number 4 when Hits blitzed the ratings. What did you hear inside the industry at the time, and what do they get right or wrong about why Hits cut through?
I think they tried to think that the other FM figures were in spite of us. You have to remember and respect to them, but it was an embarrassing time to have these bunch of kids come out onto the scene and basically just grab a whole lot of listenership from them. And there was no internet back then, you have to remember. There was no such thing. So we went streaming. We went on the internet. So it was all word of mouth and telephone.
Yeah.
And just basically what they saw on the nightly news. We were on the nightly news on most nights, and the Herald Sun as well. The Herald Sun actually set up a petition on our behalf to have us stay on air. But Fox, for the most part, thought, that they really downplayed the damage that we caused to them. And we actually took, in the other FM, 15 to 18-year-olds, it went from 1.8 to 15% whilst we were on air. Because, as I said, they were just largely ignoring this large chunk of, young kids up to 24-year-olds, because they weren't considered attractive by advertisers. They didn't really have the income. They didn't really have, the money to spend with advertisers. So they weren't really seen as being attractive to cater to. And, Fox and Triple M's loss by not appealing to the young guys or the young kids who were ignored during the day.
Did that change for Fox? Did that change down the track?
Oh, absolutely. After we came off air, they were playing stuff that you'd never heard of before. Like, Walk This Way, Run DMC and Aerosmith and, mega mixes, dance music.
Yeah.
Dance music and the rap sort of stuff, the urban sort of music.
Yeah, that's what Hits was about, wasn't it?
Correct.
It was about giving a voice to that genre of music.
Correct. And our motto was nothing but new music. Nothing but new music. And with that new music, we had a music director, Miff Webster, who was just basically another volunteer. And but she was brutal, with selecting the music and what we played.
So you'd have record companies coming to you with their artists and their
Correct.
Their roster of acts and.
Mushroom specifically.
Mushroom, okay.
Like there was an act back in the day called Tevin Campbell. I don't know if you remember him. Can We Talk? We took that from I think it was number 80 in top 80s, up to number top three. Also, we were playing mega mixes that you never 15-minute mixes of Italo house mix and stuff like that. Madonna mix. We even got our own mixes done, by record companies. Licensing was a bit of a task, trying to get licensing agreements, but
yeah, because you'd have to be careful about copyright.
Correct, and what we could put on our mixes.
Yeah,
but we were playing stuff. I mean, obviously, there was new music being released by people like Meat Loaf and Billy Joel, but we ignored that because they were still associated or being seen as an older audience.
Yeah.
But really, we didn't have any rules. We were playing stuff like Dennis Leary, Arsehole. And we were playing stuff, Sing Hallelujah, Dr. Orban and all that sort of stuff. Just stuff that you'd never, ever heard on FM radio before. We had nothing to lose. We had no skin in the ratings game, so we could make the rules up as we were going along. And we did. We were a bit cheeky the way we did it. Like, we came on temporarily and then just went, we were only coming on as a little tiny broadcaster. But I think someone in the technical department was tweaking that power up ever so slowly, as we went along.
What was the reason, do you think, behind that? You had this, because you had a lot of support. You had Molly Meldrum supporting you. You
Correct.
had the Herald Sun supporting you.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you generate that support? Was it just because they came to you and they thought you're giving young kids a voice and we want to really support that? Or was it something that in the background there, the person who was running it had connections in these areas?
Absolutely not. No. It was totally organic. We never expected anything. It was wild. Like, every day we come in and we had 4 phone lines. Some of us would be trying to ring a taxi to go home and we couldn't because the phones just wouldn't stop. We couldn't get a phone line out. We actually, I think, melted the Moorabbin telephone exchange a few times. So Telecom or PMG or whatever they were known as back in the day, they were hating our guts. But I think it was just the total... just being it was the right moment, and you couldn't script it, you couldn't make it up, we had no connections. We were just a bunch of young guys.
So when did that start generating the interest? How long did it take from the conception to the point where Ian Molly Meldrum came on and you thought, well, this is incredible what you're doing?
We started in 92 to a couple of small broadcasts, Xavier College, I think in Hawthorne or Kew. And they were okay. They were mildly successful. But just for some reason, Broadcast 3, because we were able to utilise a function to be able to take a month and then ask for an extension. So we took 60 days. So we had that continuity over summertime when everyone's listening to the radio. And it was just amazing. Like, I could go to the fuel station. I could pull up at the set of traffic lights. I could get in a cab. I could go in the supermarket and hear this radio station being pumped out over the speakers. You couldn't, no connections, and you couldn't have made that. You couldn't have been an architect of that sort of thing. It was just we were the underdogs, and we just basically got popularity just through word of mouth and kids realising that we were there. And it just grew and grew and grew. And we were the least radio savvy people that you'd ever met.
Yeah.
We were just a bunch of dumb kids, We had no idea what we were doing. The rule book went out the window. Like, we were saying things on air, messages. Like, we were just pumping up messages or, even soliciting. I think it was soliciting for pizzas some nights on the radio. We used to get 10 pizza companies used to come in, and also one night when I had Peter Andre, we had, Mr. Whippy vans roll up. So it was
Mr.
just...
Whippy vans.
That's my claim to fame, having 2 Mr. Whippy vans in the car park. But, as far as groundswell as, getting Mushroom on board, getting Herald Sun on board, getting the big guys on board, they saw the story in it. Yeah. They saw how popular it was, and they got on board. Yeah. Like, it was undeniable, and you couldn't ignore it. So, and then, Molly started seeing this groundswell. We were on the TV most nights, on the news services, and the Herald Sun. And Molly was also dropping us through. He had his column in the TV Week at the time. Mm. And he'd always been an advocate for new music, playing new music, and, getting new stuff pushed out.
When did you finish up at Hits? What year was that?
I finished up pretty much at the end of the broadcast.
Which was?
It was around March in 1994. Right. We were lucky enough to have Molly in there. A little bit worse for wear, but he saw us, in our last few minutes. And I don't know if you're familiar with Moorabbin at all, Station Street, Moorabbin train station. Mm-hmm. Pretty much the precinct was blocked. Like, cars were just all parked up in the area. And as it got closer to midnight, you could hear the car horns and people just tooting their horns. It was a really surreal moment at the time.
It was a community thing. People supported you,
We never had any right to be successful as we were, Pete. We never had any right to knock off the big guys. We were the underdogs. Mm. We were these kids that just came out of nowhere and stole the hearts and minds and listenership of Melbourne, what I mean? And kids, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Pump Up the Volume, Christian Slater at all, pirate radio station. If you get a chance, have a look at it. But it's just a case of this radio station, we had no idea what we were doing, but we did it. We captured the listenership. We were successful. We got everybody on board with us. And it's something that people were still able to think about and talk about. 30 years ago, we recently had our 30-year anniversary, and we're just still shaking our heads. Not even we believe how successful it was in the day. Mm.
So what was your next trajectory of going from Hits to, where did you go after
There was another station called Kicks FM, which was also an 89.9, which I became part of. I had a bit of a falling out with the Hits FM management at the end of the broadcast, and we moved on. And basically we played a little bit different music. We were a bit of a different vibe, but ultimately we were a competition to them, to Hits at the time. But in saying that now, and looking back on it in hindsight, nothing would really compare to Hits FM back in the day. But it still allowed me to, exercise, get the radio juices flowing still, and still be involved in something. So I did that for a few months, and then maybe even a year. That kept me going for a little while, and then moved to another radio station called City FM, run by the gentleman who started Hits FM, and we played mainly 70s, 80s music with, it went from playing new music to disco. We were actually playing stuff like no one heard disco on the radio airwaves, bringing back, Patrick Hernandez and Lips Incorporated, and just all that daggy stuff, Bee Gees and all that sort of thing.
Wow.
And we actually ripped off the Rhythm of the City jingle. I don't know if you remember 3DB. Mm-hmm. We called ourselves the Rhythm of the City. I'm surprised they didn't sue us. So, and I it was a good time. I had a few people in, like Brian Canham came in and, a few of the acts of the day. And then after I did all the Aspirin radio thing, I was also involved in I was a bit of a radio junkie. So we did festival radio as well, whereby, festivals or, Iron Man would get us in and we'd, promote events or just, be a 3-day radio station similar to. And then I moved into commercial radio. So going from the new music and so forth into 3AW around 2004, in production, tape room, panelling for people, mainly Darren James on the weekend. But, you know, I was working alongside, you know, Neil Mitchell. Darren was there at the time as well.
Mm-hmm. So that was the first professional commercial network
Correct.
that you'd worked for?
Correct. I had friends and I'd been in radio stations, you know, I knew people that had worked in the game, but this is the first time that I was actually working inside a radio station, a commercial radio station.
And how much different was that in comparison to where you were working previously in more community radio?
A lot more time critical working commercial radio, like when you had to get spots to air and when you had to pull grabs for on air, like it was time critical. Like you used to have to turn around things in a matter of minutes, whereby in radio, you know, where I was doing, you know, with the youth radio, we'll get to it when we do, you know what I mean?
There's not as much structure in it.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, and 9 times out of 10, we were either working on, you know, 2 or 3 hours sleep for the day, or a bit of a hangover from the night before. So I've always worked on the mantra of 20-minute blocks. People would come in and out of radio every 20 minutes. So don't go too far ahead into the hour. Tease what's coming up, but don't go too far ahead into the hour. And be succinct with what's coming up in that 20 minutes. Break up your hour into those 20-minute blocks, you know, mini little 20-minute segments. And just make sure though that you're hitting your pointers and you come in prepared, that you've got something prepared. You know, you've got your events down, you've got your music pointers down, you know, even weather, what's coming up.
Yeah.
Points of interest for that 20 minutes. Make sure you've got it and hit it. Don't waffle. Get onto it. Hit it. Always been told, get in, like get in, get out, get in, get out. Go on air. Say what you got to say. Get out. Otherwise, you bore the listener.
Well, that's good advice to aspirational 16-year-olds who want to get involved in radio. So I think that's. I want to thank you for joining me, but I've got one more question. What were you hearing in the hallways and promos back then?
I remember one particular song that was new at the time. I don't remember Billy Joel's All About Soul. Every time I used to play it just to hear the music director come thumping down the hallway. Every time I played it, within the first 10 seconds, she came down dropping F-bombs at me left, right and centre. But, you know, the fact that we were able to prove that we were making inroads and talking numbers and talking ratings, that was never, like we were just having a good time. We were just doing our thing. And then we thought, oh shit, it's actually getting, you know, some traction here. So became a little bit scary, but it was pretty good fun at the same time as well. And I just want to just preface in saying this, Pete, in that I'm not pretending or I'm no radio expert. There's probably 20, 30, 40, 50 other people that could be sitting here that give you a better, you know, how-to on radio. But I guess the uniqueness is that I came from the journey I did with, you know, with an Aspirin radio station, the early radio interest that I had, into the Aspirin radio station, the unconventional way that, you know, we became popular. Because back in the day, you used to have to go to country. You used to have to do your time in the country. Then
that's right.
But we were, you know, accidentally successful. So I'm not sitting here today pretending to be any radio expert of any kind. But I think my journey that I've had is pretty unique. So
totally. Well, that's Glenn Hanson. If you like this, please rate the show and share it with a mate who loves radio. I'm Pete Camilleri. This is Pete's Voodoo Room, and every track tells a story.
Voodoo strikes, it'll tear apart your head.